Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jeremy N. I'm uh, doing kind of a tutorial video on how to. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you have an issue with the Valkyrie, the firing button. Will either get hot or not fire at all. Um, I had to do some extensive tinkering and research on how to figure out how to resolve this issue. I'm not going to get into specifics how I feel about it. I think that Viscious a great um, company and that they're going to, make good with this issue. The build quality and everything about, everything else about this is great. It's spot on. I couldn't have been happier with it when I first got it, but the second sitting when I picked it up and vaped it again, it was not firing. So this is just a tutorial how to fix that and save yourself some time and hassle, and just kind of watch this video, and I will, a pain in the ass as it is, I'll show you guys how I fixed my Valkyrie and got it to fire again. But first I'm going to take a vape because I'm going to take it apart. Alright, and it's vaping now. Very well. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm sure you already know about this, I'm going to take the button off and kind of just show you how I did it. Alright, so inside there is the Delrim with the brass pin there, and as you can see, if you look closely, there's two small holes in the Delrim along the brass pin there. Now you can either use tweezers and just get into the two holes there and spin it out to take the Delrim out, but I'm just going to use a micro screwdriver because I've kind of loosened it up already by taking it out. Because at first it's a little tough to take out, but after you kind of just get in there or whatever and move it about, it makes it kind of easier to do, not to the point where it's, affecting the quality of the device. Is just kind of just easier to take it out. So I just took it out. You set it aside to where you can find it again. And here's another Delrim inside. This Delrim is not threaded in there. It's just placed inside underneath. It's used basically as a spacer between this silver contact pin to make contact with the back end of your brass. There's two ends of this. You'll see it when you pull it out. The flat end is supposed to make contact with that silver pin. I believe it's silver, could be wrong. When the button is pressed, it should make contact in between that spacer in there. So what you're going to want to do next is, since it's not threaded at all, just take that spacer out, and I kind of just go like that, pop it out of there, and we're good. I have, so there's two sides of the spacer. What I did was I sanded down my spacer a little bit, just so there's still space. Sorry, I'm watching football too. So there's still space in between it, but it's less space. So I think that might have increased my chances of making contact. And then when I place it back in, I'll get to that later when I place it back in. So inside there, as you can see, is the silver pin, and around it is another, it's like a stainless steel or spacer that can be clipped on and clipped off. I was kind of afraid to take it off at first because I wasn't sure how that was going to affect it, but you can actually use a micro screwdriver just to get in there and be careful, apply pressure, but you don't want to damage your device, so you can actually pop that little guy off, but be careful. So there it goes, it pops off, and then you want to make sure, so you take that little spacer and you put it somewhere, because you want it for later. You want to put it back in there because it's pretty important, that little guy. So that allows the button to slide out of the encasing along with the spring there. Just set those aside for now. You're going to want them later. Set those aside. And now you can just set this aside, because the real issue is actually with excuse me. Coming down with something. So the real issue is with this pin here. I think there was like some tarnish or something on there that was creating the firing issue. So what I had to do was take some 1000 grade sandpaper and in circular motions just sand down this portion of the pin. And I probably sanded it for a good 5 minutes. I did it a couple times actually just to make sure that, you know, I was getting good contact, and I'll do it again while it's out. Just so it's smooth. Just sand it down. You can use other sandpaper too, I'm sure, as long as it's just smooth at the end and you don't sand it down too much to where it's not going to make contact. But just to clean it off, basically, is what you want to do. You don't want to sand it down too far. So, now that that's done, and I've explained it, don't forget, you might want to sand this, but I would start off just sanding this portion, because this will actually affect your throw if you sand it down too far. So just place the spring back. I know this isn't the best video, but I'm doing my best here. Put the pin back, or the spring back on the pin there. Then you want to put this portion, slide it back into the encasing in the firing button. Fumble! And now you want to take this little silver guy, steel guy, whatever, and you're going to want to pop that back into place. Also, I can't stress enough to just be careful with this, because you know, with your sharp objects, you don't want to scratch up your mod really bad on the outside. And just pop this guy back in. Just be careful. I'm just using the screwdriver and I'm popping it back in with a little pressure. I'm going to do this to where I'm safe with it. It might take some pressure and some time to get it back in, but as you can see, I got it back in there just as it was. So I just cleaned that contact off is all I did. And I cleaned these off too, just in case. The flat side, and I polished up this side too, the telescopic side. That might have helped. So when I put this back in, I want the flat side, at least I've had the best firing with the flat side facing upwards. So I want the flat side up. I think that creates space for the pin to move. And then just push it in there with your finger and make sure it's underneath the threads there. So just push it in to as far as it'll go with your finger. Shouldn't take too much pressure. And now you want to take this and put it back in. So the flat side's down, of course. And just use, whatever, some tweezers. You can use some tweezers to put it back in. I'll do that with those two holes that we were using. Do that right now. Takes a little fiddling. Usually not this much fiddling. I don't know why. Alright, so I got it back into where I can just kind of screw back in there. And be careful. You don't want to scratch your mod. Apply pressure, but not crazy pressure. Alright, so I sanded mine down pretty good, so it did affect the throw a little bit, but I'm waiting for the replacement button from Viscious anyways, and at least I got it to the point where it's firing and I can still lock it. It's still working just fine. It's just the throw's a little smaller, which I don't mind. screw back on there. And if it doesn't fire right away, don't worry. Just kind of get the battery adjusted, because it might have just kind of, when you screwed it back in, you might just want to mess with the telescopic pin there to get the battery, so that gets that rattle out. Once that rattles out, it should be firing. And it's firing. I'm gonna pop some juice in there. Interception. And sure enough, firing like a dream. I mean, the Valkyrie itself is an awesome mod, guys. Don't let this get you deterred from getting one, at least until they, you know, I could understand until they correct the issue with the button, but at least it's fixable, and I'm vaping on it now, and I'm not going to return it or anything. I'm still going to vape on it all day today, and I'm really pleased with, you know, the overall, you know, quality of the device, you know, the sleekness, the curviness, the concaveness. It's awesome. But, you know, I spent all day trying to figure this out, and I figured to at least put up a video, so if somebody's having the same issue, which I know some of you are, that there is hope and you can resolve the issue. So, yeah, that's it, guys. Hopefully you're able to understand my babble, and you know, I don't have a bunch of cameras and angles and stuff, but hopefully I was able to explain it to you well enough to where you can start vaping your device properly again. Alright guys, have a good one, man. Vape on.